All right, well, welcome to World Plone Day 2021. And today we've assembled a panel of leading lights in the Plone community. And some of them may be a little dim. I mean, we won't talk specific wattage, but let's say they're LED lights. They're very efficient, very bright. So with me today is Érico Andrei, Chrissy Wainwright, Timo Stollenwerk, and Philip Bauer. We have an international panel. So today we're going to start with, actually, maybe I should introduce people. Érico used to work for Microsoft, but he's repenting now. He's going to spend the rest of his life repenting. Chrissy Wainwright is with 6 Feet Up, longtime Plone Foundation member and current Plone Foundation president. Timo Stollenwerk is CEO of kitconcept. The leaders in Volto front-end development for Plone, the future of Plone. And Philip Bauer is, well, he's the guy who does everything with training and migrations of Plone, and he was the head pusher for Plone's migration to Python 3. So I think that's probably a good way to introduce you. 3 or 4 people. Okay. So today's questions are really just to throw out there. We're going to start with, what is Plone to you in a single sentence? And I'm going to start with Érico.
Oh my God, I knew the day would come. I would say Plone to me is a great community that builds great software.
Chrissy?
Yeah, I was also going to go with community that supports the Plone content management system.
Timo?
For me, it's really the people, especially in the last years when we went through rough times, like also personally and people in the community and stuff. It's really, in the end, what matters to me is the people, the friendship that we build. And I hate to say that, but software comes second, right? It's a community, it's the people, really. What matters to me personally, the personal relationships and everything that we do together.
It was a very long German sentence. So for English-speaking audience, that was one sentence. And it's just long commas. Like that's how we do it in Germany.
Yeah, I screwed it up. I'm sorry.
That's
no,
like,
that was fine.
Why is it,
sorry.
Why is that called reverse Polish notation if it's German? Philip.
Ask the
What's Plone to you in a single sentence?
It depends on the day. Shall I elaborate quickly? Okay, I'll do the German thing also. Most of the days is actually just a tool to write software, but on the good days, it is a family and a community and a lot of friends. But yeah, I'm also working with it, so sometimes I have to butt my head against it. Not all of the times are happy, but most of them.
All right, I feel like I need to answer too. Although I will agree with you that it's about community and family. I mean, I've known many of you for, 13 years, if not longer, I think about 13. But it is certainly about the community, but it's also about what I think is a wonderful piece of software that was wonderful when I first looked at it in 2003. And over the years has continued to improve and be refined, and is still the solution that I turn to when I tell people I care about how they can solve a problem with content management and creating websites and intranets. It's still what I believe is the best solution out there. All right. Anything else you want to throw in there, or can I move on to the next question? Okay.
Move on.
Érico, how did you come across Plone?
I'm not German, but I'm living in Germany, right? So I'm going to use the same excuse in a bit longer sentence. So I've been working with content management solutions since '97, I think. And at some point, I believe 2004, I started my own company and we were looking for a CMS solution, right? We went all the way. We looked at many solutions, but at the time I still had my strong ties to the dark side of the force, to Microsoft. So Microsoft Content Management Server, I believe, was the solution at the time. But in the end, a good friend, Luciano Ramalho, introduced Plone to my company, and we fell in love with it because it was easy, secure, and most important at the time.
That's quite an endorsement. Luciano Ramalho, that is...
Yes, he was the main evangelist for Plone for quite a long time in Brazil. And for us in here, it was important because accessibility and usability.
Chrissy, how did you come across Plone?
Just from starting to work at 6 Feet Up, because I'd never heard of content management system or anything like that beforehand. I was just a CSS JavaScript developer. So it was my first introduction to anything like this. That's just what 6 Feet Up used. So,
Timo, how did you come across Plone?
So I started to build websites in the late 90s, I think, when I came out of school and started to tinker around. And then I had a pet project that grew bigger and bigger. We actually translated articles from an American magazine into German, and we published that, and that became bigger and bigger. So we ended up with a few thousands of articles, which was like a lot back then for me. And I built that with I started with HTML, CSS, and then PHP and MySQL came in, right? And it grew so big, at least for me back in the days, that I couldn't couldn't keep up with the incoming content, right? Then it became clear to me that I need a CMS, right? And at that time, I was totally fed up with PHP and stuff because I felt that I was a bad programmer using a bad tool. And I started to research CMSs. And I researched, I looked at all the PHP CMSs, and I came across Plone. I don't know why. Maybe I just Google for it, or not Google, right? Not Alta Vista or whatever. I loved it. I mean, I loved the user experience in comparison to say Typo 3 back then was just the set of input fields, right? And one thing that struck me was we had this in Plone 2. We had this navigation that used the early stages of the box model in CSS, and that was that blew me away, right? Totally, that Plone could do that, and I wanted to use that CMS because to me it was the best choice on the market there. But it was also frightening for me because I was a PHP developer and MySQL, and it uses Python. I had no experience with Python. I had no experience with what ZODB is and stuff, right? So I had to learn that all. But yeah, fortunately I made it. Since then it's my go-to tool for everything still, right? And I still like it and love it in the first day.
Philip, how did you come across Plone?
Yep. I've been doing how's it called, Dreamweaver and all that stuff, writing HTML by hand and using all the tools available. Self HTML, that was the best source. It taught me a lot about web development, but not programming, obviously. And we needed a tool for a client, and I started to get serious, and so we looked for something serious, and Plone looked the perfect mix of fun and seriousness. So we chose that. And it was not my decision. It was a friend who recommended it because he actually knew what Python was. I didn't. And similar as Timo, I didn't do PHP. I did .NET stuff, and God, this nonsense. But we evaluated Plone, and that's how we came across that, and it stuck. It worked for the first project, and it worked for almost every project since. It's not a one-size-fits-it-all, but the jobs that we do are mostly a good fit with Plone because they are mostly complex, interesting projects.
The way I came across Plone was in 2003, I volunteered to run a grant project at the university, and it required creating a website for educators. So clearly not programmers, not people comfortable with HTML. And to create a website that would allow the public to view content, but also allow logged in viewers to view content that was private. And so being able to search, being able to find a tool that included that functionality plus built-in search, plus built-in navigation, and all the amazing features that were in Plone back then and are still in Plone. Still, no other content management system has those things in core. Was amazing. And so the success of that particular project meant that the rest of the university was easily convinced to use Plone for all of its websites. So what are examples of Plone implementations you're especially proud of, Érico?
There's so many. I worked in many projects, but I would say something that I would probably be proud and share for the rest of my life. My life is basically the Brazilian government, mostly because we came up with a solution that's available on GitHub. So any organization within the Brazilian government can basically download, install it themselves. We have this kind of Plone distribution focusing on the Brazilian government institutions. And it fits from the gov.br, that's the main Brazilian government site, to many ministries. And also it's used, even if that was not the case at the moment, we did not plan for that. It's used by many small community colleges connected to the Brazilian government. At some point, we had at least 600 or 700 different sites using this Plone distribution. Also, I was part of a similar project that focused only on legislative chambers. And this one is even bigger. We have around 3,000 legislative chambers in Brazil using it. And again, focusing on accessibility and security, the focus of accessibility and security of Plone was the main selling point all over Brazil for this.
Wow, 3,000, holy moly. Chrissy, what would be some examples of Plone implementations you're most proud of?
We've done so many. Like I would have to look at a list and see like the dozens of sites that we've done. I mean, it's neat looking at some of the clients, like ones that do autism research or the Indiana Historical Society, stuff like that. I think a good example of one that's live now is cnm.edu. It's a community college in New Mexico that they are a good use case for Plone because they have lots of editors that use their different workflows. They have people that only have permission to access certain sites of the sites, or only edit some of those. And I mean, they're a client that we really see that uses like all of the features of Plone as intended.
Timo, what are examples of Plone implementations you're especially proud of?
Yeah, I guess as Chrissy said, it's hard to choose when you look at all the projects that you did over time. So I would guess I would just choose the last like 2 projects that we did last year, which I'm especially proud of and which also represent quite well, in my opinion, what Plone can do and the main use cases of Plone. So one is a public website of one of the highest profile government websites in Germany. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to like say the name openly, but yeah, it's really a high profile website that lots of people visit, which we built with Volto and which came along really nicely. And the second example is a large scale intranet for roughly like 10,000 people with like a few like 100 editors that we built recently for one of the largest research institutions in Europe, which is Forschungszentrum Jülich. I will also talk about this in my World Plone presentation. which has lots of users at intranet, and we got like an overwhelmingly positive feedback from the client. So those would be the two projects I would choose today.
Philip, what are examples of Plone implementations you're especially?
Yeah, that's really tough. So one, it's no longer online, but it was actually our first website, the one that made me start using Plone. It was for the documentation center about National Socialism in Munich. And I made the design and I did the programming and I did it all through the web in the ZMI. And it was a beautiful, fast, extremely well done page that was online for many years. And I was super proud of that. And it had a very low budget, so that it didn't cost a lot. So we used Plone out of the box and tweaked the right knobs. It took a long time of learning, so I had to pay for that time for myself, learning to find out which knobs to actually turn to get the desired effects for custom content types, additional fields, and having them display in weird places conditionally and stuff like that. And also multilingual and all that. And the intranet part of the website. So it combined everything in one small, very first condensed experience. That was great. And the second one is Dynajet.de. We just relaunched the site. It's Plone 6, not Volto. It's Plone 6 Classic, so server-side render templates. It has a React-driven shop. It is super fast. It is multilingual with 3 languages, has an extranet, an intranet. It has everything. It has thousands and thousands and thousands of crazy content types. It has extremely elaborate, faceted navigation and search. And I couldn't have done that, like starting from this small project to that one. In a decent budget without knowing all the knobs now. So now I know which knobs I should have turned 10 years ago. And now I get this result reasonably fast, and I can pull off these really huge projects. And it was also a migration from Plone 3 to 4 to 5 now. And not 5, it's actually 6. It uses Plone 6 master branch.
I like that metaphor of having to know of all of the knobs that are available. I imagine a massive control room like a nuclear power plant.
It totally is the
greatest one, but knowing what to turn and what not to turn.
Exactly.
If only certain nuclear power plants had an undo feature. I'm going to go with something really simple. Every time I get involved with a volunteer group, nonprofit of some sort, first thing I do is I look up what sort of web presence they have. And usually it's a very sad one because the developers have done the work and then they've moved on. And if they've left behind something that is technologically maybe complete and can do a lot, but the people who've been passed down this thing don't know how to use it. And so what I found is that when you introduce something like Plone to a set of users who are not super technical, they just want to get their job done. They spend 1 hour every 2 weeks updating their site. You want something that's easy to use, that's not super complex. And so Plone is one of those tools that you can give out of the box a website that just works. And if you don't spend a lot of time trying to show them all the fancy things that you can do with Plone, all the other knobs, you want to just give them a very simple control panel on their desk where they just do the 10 things that they possibly would need to do. And I've been able to build small, simple websites for people who can feel free to make those changes without worrying that something is going to break. And they can also delegate content creation to students who, again, don't have to have all the access on a system, but they can just make the changes that they are authorized to make. So Plone has helped a lot of volunteer groups and charities that I've helped. So what would you say, Érico, are your top favorite features in Plone?
It's like picking your favorite song. In my case, picking a song is easy, but picking feature of Plone, I would say, first of all, there's the whole workflow / security / permission. It's what makes Plone great. But my personal favorite feature is content rules. The ability to create rules that act based on some triggers, like, okay, you add a new content, then go and do other stuff. It's really powerful, especially when you're managing bigger sites with thousands of different news items and so on. It gives you a lot of speed, and it helps you organize and so on and so forth. I really love content rules.
Chrissy, what would you say is your top feature in Plone?
I like the collections, like being able to curate specific types in the site. I'll use it a lot when debugging, like if I'm trying to find a page that was edited recently, or I just want to see which pages were edited recently so I can look at them and make sure that nothing's broken. And just that ability to pick and choose exactly what I want to see.
Timo, do you have a top favorite feature in Plone?
Yeah, ease of use and editor friendliness, because that's really key in all our projects. And the longer you are in a project, when you have a project that you help people with, like over, maybe we have clients that I worked for over 10 years now, and when you see like that people change there, and the people who are responsible like change, and then like somebody has like maybe calls you up because somebody is on holidays and they have to change something and publish a super important press release or something like that, right? Then this is really the key for a system to last long, to make it like easy to use, because lots of editors do not publish things on the web on a daily basis, right? Maybe they only do that like every once a week, or maybe once a month, right? And then the user friendliness of Plone is really the key, in my opinion, for a project to last longer and provide a client satisfactory clients, right?
Philip, do you have a top favorite feature in Plone?
Traversal. Most definitely, traversal is an amazing concept to organize data. It's just great. But for those who don't know what traversal is, I'm not going to explain that. You'll have to find out yourself. The sharing tab is excellent. That is just, it's hard to find in other systems to say, okay, some person can just has special roles here, and that ties in together with the object-based security system. And generally, the pluggability of there's so many plugs and knobs that you can use. For example, the serializers in the REST API, they are just awesome and exciting, and you can customize. You can write your own serializer, and you just plug it in, and it does for this type. In this case, it does something a little bit different because you just need that, and you don't have to patch or fork the whole thing. But it's really nice. It's like Lego. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's funny that you should mention Lego. Sorry, I'm thinking about the catamaran.
Inside jokes.
So when you say that, Philip, it's interesting because, actually all of you 3 or 4, when you give different answers like that, you can see the span of what Plone can do. For some people, it's the ease of use, the editor experience. For someone like Philip, who's very technical, you can bend Plone to your will and make it do very, very technical, detailed things. And it's that range of possibility that Plone provides. Even though out of the box, it's a content management system, but it can do all of these other things, and that integration with other systems, whether it's authentication or backend systems or communicating and synchronizing with other web systems, is one of the great things about Plone. How much money would you say, Érico, that those big implementations of Plone have saved by using Plone as opposed to something else?
That's a tricky question, but I'll tell one story, right? I knew for a fact that bids for some ministry government sites would run at the time, 2013, 14, like $500,000 would be at the time $250,000, right? For one site and just to build it up. And then I remember end of 2013, just after the Plone conference, I was called by the Ministry of Justice because they basically went there, downloaded this eGov solution from GitHub, set it up, imported all the content and everything. And they did that with 2 contractors. They had like 2 guys there, and they did that by themselves. And I was hired basically to make sure it was performing well. And I know for sure there were many similar stories, but although they did not call me, so I did not profit and I do not have my Ferrari yet. But it's impressive to see how we gave to many of these departments inside the Brazilian government the ability to build their own sites, build their own intranets without having to resort to vendors and doing complex and spending taxpayer money. Okay, so when we talk about saving money, I believe that's the best story I can give you. But Plone is not just about that, but it's also about leveraging the content you have, the information you have in different ways, so you can make money out of it. So going even back further in time, I have a story about this media company that they would have this content tree in, for instance, in their IT magazine, and they would have a separate content tree, a separate tree with a different layout, look and feel, but using exactly the same content from the main content tree thanks to acquisition. It was really voodoo magic in there. And again, naming Luciano Ramalho, that was his idea. And this company made a lot of money selling like sponsorship for different hot sites that were actually the same content they already had. So this was a way of making money out of a simple CMS feature we had at the time.
Chrissy, how much money do you think 6 Feet Up's clients have saved by using Plone?
I mean, it's hard to say because I don't deal with the money part a whole lot. And up to us, if we don't choose Plone, we're choosing some other open source tool, not something where the client's going to have to pay for licensing or anything like that. But like with newer projects, we tend to pick Plone, like especially depending on who's going to be working on the project, because it's something we already know. We don't even have to think about, okay, how's this part going to work? How's this going to work? We just already know how we're going to build that a piece. So that certainly saves time.
Timo, for your clients, do you feel that you have an idea, a handle on how much money they've saved using Plone?
Yes, but I'm not sure if I want to think about that because it's for sure millions, and it's hard to tell tell stories without violating NDAs here, right? But it's really when you see what systems we compete against, right? If you have like Microsoft or other companies, and you see the licensing costs that systems that we migrate away, for instance, like cost our clients, right? It's really a lot. The sad thing is that the money they spend on licensing is not the main reason why they switch, really. I've never had a client that came to us and say, we want to save money, so can we use Plone, right? Most of our clients do not care that much about like the licensing costs, right? Because it's only part of the deal, right? If you build a new system, then you have to not only think about the licensing costs, but like what it costs to run it, what it costs to train your people and all those kind of things, right? So they're complex decisions financially, but it's definitely a lot. And there are lots of stories when you pitch against say Microsoft or like Oracle or whatever, right? And you hire a consultant, and then sometimes in every larger organization, there's always a competing system, right? And there are lots of people in there. So usually the editors, they love Plone, they want to keep their precious Plone, right? And then there are like often people like in the higher ranks, right, who have no clue about like the technology and stuff, and they fall to like the Microsoft consultant that like promise them everything, right? If everything fits together. And you always have that competition in there, right? If you work for larger organizations, and but yeah, licensing costs are not the main driver of that. But you sometimes see how much money they spend on that, and I think the main problem of Plone or of Plone consulting companies is that we're too cheap, so they don't take us seriously, right? I saw that when we went to pitches with like larger organizations that like got us on board, and that charged way higher rates than I could ever imagine, right? And then I saw that like the clients started to take us seriously, because when you pitch against something that has like 7 digits, right, and you come across and say it costs only like, give us 5% of the money and we will build you a better system, right? They don't take you seriously. That's the point. That's the reality, right? And that's actually one of the main problems that you have as a Plone consultancy, that sometimes you're too cheap and they don't take you seriously because of that, right? Because they think like when Microsoft charges you that amount of money, right? You can't do the same thing or a better thing for 5% of what Microsoft charges you annually, right? Yep. So that's a lot of money.
Yeah, brilliant. That's brilliant insight, Timo. Thanks. Well, I mean, Philip, what do you think for your clients? Even though I know you charge so much money for your work, but how much money do you figure you've saved your clients by putting them on Plone?
I've no clue, actually. I could turn it upside down. So I know that they waste a lot of money by not choosing Plone. We did a huge project for the organization that manages hospitals, public hospitals in Bavaria. And we did a management application for them, not me alone, with Stefan Antonelli, for example, from Operon. And it was a beautiful, great, huge application. It wasn't cheap, obviously not. But they decided to throw everything away that was ready because they decided to build everything fresh with Microsoft. And that's what happens in a lot of organizations, that there are business decisions that are not based on the technology, but on strategic decisions. And I don't want to doubt these. They may be sane because they have IT departments and there are only 5 people and they only know Microsoft. So that's what they choose. So, but at the end of the story, they spent millions and millions of dollars of public money in this case, for stuff that is absolutely useless and doesn't work as the system that was already done. So that was maybe just a sore spot for me, this one project. But I guess you can always save a lot of money when you pick the right tool for the job. So that's why we choose Plone often, because it's one of the questions I mostly ask a client who says, can we use something small? Wouldn't WordPress be nice and stuff like that? Is so are you going to use multiple editors and a more complex workflow in the future? And they always say no. But the answer is always, in reality, is always yes, because their requirements change, but they're not 100% aware of the changing requirements. So you have to push the right buttons of the client in this case to figure out which organizational changes might need to be reflected in the application or the website that you're building for them. And then in most of the cases, Plone is the answer to whatever question they throw at you, which is kind of weird, but it is true more often than not.
When I think of some of the costs that were proposed for proprietary solutions for building redoing websites for the university here where I used to work. It was insane. Even though the salespeople would try to play down the licensing costs, you just knew that if you wanted another editor, you had to pay more. You wanted the ability to fail over or replicate. Oh, that's a lot more. Or you want to upload images and videos. Well, that's extra. It's amazing how much money people are willing to throw at a solution when there are inexpensive or free tools that can do the same. And it's often, as you say, Timo, it's a question of perception from business leaders when they look at the price and they start thinking of what the price means to them compared to a $0 price, which is a real conundrum.
And sometimes it's really super strange. Sorry.
No. You brought up a really good point.
Yeah. Sometimes it's super strange when you are in a pitch and like you have an IT person there and they constantly ask you like this kind of same questions, like how much will it cost to set up a server like in Japan, right? And if we upgrade our servers and we have more CPUs, right? How much will that cost? And they always fear that there's a trap somewhere, right? And you're always saying like, there's no trap. It's your software, right? You can do what you want. And if you don't like me, then you go to the next one, right? And so there's no way I can like lock you in, right? As a vendor or anything, right? But they're so used to this vendor lock-in and being ripped off by companies that they can't even imagine that somebody like won't do that, right?
All right. And so to close off our panel today, the question that I want to ask you, Érico, is where do you see Plone going in the future?
Everywhere, to Mars, to the moon. Or actually, I see, first of all, I do believe the world changed a lot in the last 20 years. Content management solutions were the main thing a long time ago, and now content management is part of your overall solution for web and so on. One of the benefits Plone always had was the ability to connect to other systems and to play well and nice. And I do believe, and thank you, Philip, for leading that, we did our homework. We are future-proof with Python 3. We are running on Whiskey thanks to the awesome Zope community, meaning that I see a future where the APIs of Plone, the Plone REST APIs, will be part of a larger API set for a customer website or customer solution. And then we are going to have Volto as the front end, connecting, getting data from a relational database or connecting to legacy systems and so on and so forth. So Plone is going to be even more important from now on, because you can basically build your entire solution and plug Plone in there. You can pick the best solutions you want. You want to authenticate with OAuth and Google because you have Google Suite, you go for that. You want to use your legacy LDAP, you go for that. We support that out of the box right now. So it's more a way of Plone in the future is basically part of bigger solutions, and it's a really nice player in these bigger solutions.
Chrissy, where do you see Plone going in the future?
Oh, well, first I want to address Érico mentioning like to the moon and Mars, and well, NASA does use Plone a little bit, including with the New Horizons project that went out to Pluto. So you can say Plone has been to Pluto and beyond. Other than that, I'm looking forward to getting a lot more people in the community, seeing more people find Plone and join us, especially with the efforts the marketing team has been doing here recently. I think it's been great seeing what your team has done and working on doing and planning on doing. I think that's really going to help get more people to know what Plone is.
Timo, where do you see Plone going in the future?
Yeah, it's hard to add something because both Chrissy and Érico put it so nicely. So I will just add a few things to that, I guess. So Yeah, I fully agree that the CMS market like completely changed, right? And the key is like the pluggability that we have and the ability with our new front-end backend architecture and with Plone REST API to play well with others. That's one of the most important things. And the second thing is something that Chrissy said, onboarding people, right? So what we use, the stack that we use right now is we're using Python, which is one of the hottest programming languages, right? There are like two, depending on who you ask, right? But it's Python and JavaScript, right? So we're using Python and JavaScript, and those are like the hot programming languages right now, right? And when you train people from scratch, which we did in the last years, our experience is that with our new front-end stack, it's really easy to train people to really become really good programmers in Volto, right, really quickly. And it's really like the thing that when you meet somebody and it's a programmer, you talk about React or like JavaScript or something, right? That's the hot topic. That's where like all the people are and where the youngsters are and everything, right? So I think we have a bright future as a Plone community, because we can also provide those like younger people something in addition to like a nice programming language and the hot thing right now, right? But as well, like the community that we have. And I love showing our younger coworkers like how the community works and what we can offer and how much fun it is to work on something together, right? And yeah, when I look at that, I think we have a really bright future if we continue our path, right? And keep reinventing Plone, which is amazing because as Érico said, like Philip worked his ass off bringing it to Python 3, right? And this allows us to go on. This allowed us to build Volto and on top of Plone, right? And on top of the REST API. And yeah, so I really think we have a bright future.
Philip, where do you see Plone going in the future?
Well, I'll have to agree with almost everything. By the way, my ass is still there. I just checked. So I think we're in a really good situation right now because with the upcoming Plone 6, it's a bit problematic, but also excellent and great because you can choose what you need. And the community does this all together. You create these projects together, and for each project you decide if you want to go old school backend with server-side render templates with Chameleon, which is amazingly fast if you do it right. For example, our newest projects, it almost feels like Volto, but it's classic Plone. It's HTML page template basically. That's crazy fast at the moment. And on the other hand, the move to a React-based front end, which is super exciting. But we, as a community, we have a long ways to go adapting ourselves to developing for that new front end. I know that not every company and every developer has embraced that yet as much as I'd love to. And I'm super happy that people like Katja Süß, for example, are putting in a lot of time in updating the trainings and documentation for to make these new technologies, or at least for like old hands like me, new technologies more approachable. I think we have a really bright future there, especially, nothing else to add to the other things. But we need to keep one thing straight, and that is the instant lovability. There is this story about Plone that I would love for that to be my answer to the question, how did you come across Plone? When we were in Arnhem at the conference, we gathered at a some park. There was a couple of pubs next to each other, and we spread out there. And there was a friend from the community, had a friend walking by They just met and they never heard of Plone. And she said, I have no idea what you guys are doing, but I want to be part of that. And if we keep this spirit alive into the next decades, we have a bright future.
Oh, man. I was going to say something, but I think we're going to have to end on that amazing note, Philip. Thank you very much, Philip Bauer, Timo Stollenwerk, Chrissy Wainwright, and Érico Andrei. I really appreciate your joining me today and giving your thoughts on Plone and its future and all the great reasons to keep using Plone and to start using Plone. And so I hope that all of you viewers or listeners are going to have a chance to listen to or catch some of the new content that we're creating for this year's World Plone Day. And we hope to see you at a nearby sprint or an online conference or an in-person conference. Plone is a truly welcoming community of very smart, friendly, and wonderful people to work with. So please join us.